Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast brought to you by bet.co.za. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and drop a 5-star rating in order to share this podcast with the rugby world. And please go to the bet.co.za website to see what markets they have for all the rugby competitions happening right now. Today I'm joined by Shaun and Kooks. My name is Thala. We are almost at full team. Kooks back from his Darcy Swain suspension. We are not going to reveal what Kooks did in order to get suspended, but it's great to have him here. Shaun is also here. And let's start with our first phase, which is a good one, talking about Rugby Frankensteins and the 3 attributes of different players that you want to fit together. Shaun, let me start with you. Since the idea came from you, what are the 3 aspects you would join together for the perfect rugby player?
Okay, so I obviously and always talk about, but always think about outside centers and outside backs. But I want a player that has got the bull terrier and pound for pound power of Van Cock. I want to mix in the balance and running of Teddy Thomas, who is an incredible with ball in hand when he's running. Like I've never seen anyone run like that in my life. And then I want to finish it off with the vision and skills of Ruan Venter, who can play at 9, 10, or 15 in his younger days. And I think as a combo, you basically have the best Springbok player 23 in the history. Someone that can cover most likely 10, 12, and 15, and maybe 13. You can put him on the wing if need be. He's got the vision to be an inside back or a fullback, and he's got the speed and power to be an outside back. So that would be my mixture.
Yeah, so you actually just mentioned the thing I was going to ask you about where to put a player like this, but I really like the idea of just this, amazing runner, maybe especially on the outside at 13, he might be able to expose some gaps in the defense.
I think if I had to, looking at this, if I had to put him somewhere, I would say he'd probably more be suited for 15. But he can most certainly fill in at 13 and somewhere else. Because with the 15, he can fill in at that second first receiver during like phases like 3 and 5 and whatnot. And then at 15, when he gets to run into space, if he spots a gap, the man's gone like clappers, man. So I think 15 would be the best shot.
That sounds great. Kooks, what is your Rugby Frankenstein that you're building?
So for me, I went to. First of all, how's it, guys? It's great to be back from my suspension. Hopefully, I'll be able to stay in the pod for more than 1 week in a row. So, but for me, my thought was I thought I went position, so I went with the 8th man. So I thought I went current players at the moment. So I thought if I could create the perfect 8th man, my Frankenstein, I'd have the skills and ball playing ability of Jack Conan. I'd have the hardness and the ball carrying of Jasper Wiese, and then the X factor of Ardie Savea. I feel like if you combine all of that, that could probably win World Player of the Year. I think every week and every year, like I can't find a better 8th man combination. Those are my 3 favorite 8th mans at the moment. So I thought I wanted a bit of balance. I mean, I know I'm probably cheating with Ardie's more of a 7, but I feel like his X factor is different. I mean, Jack Conan, he's all flows, and what he does for Ireland, especially on the wing, is so underrated. And Jasper Wiese, like we said, hasn't gone backwards probably since started playing rugby.
Yes, that's a great shot. And like just thinking of South African 8s and how we like to position them and everything, your 8 seems to be a pretty good option at line out and has a bit of grunt to fill in the maul as well. So if you want to play him in the tight or in the loose, he's available. Yes, imagine that he'd be so bloody dangerous, man. Will he have a moustache? He kind of has to have a moustache though, surely, because Ardie's had one every now and then. He's got a big tash.
He's definitely has a moustache, and it's like, I was thinking like a player like that. I mean, it's sort of like, imagine, because like all these sort of 8th men in the world now, sort of not many of them like have like a sort of all-round game. Probably the last one who comes close to this is probably Kieran Reid, who could sort of do everything on the rugby field. But because now everyone sort of like has got a trait, and I mean, Ardie's just, I think his trait is just being shit hot rugby player. Like he just do everything. But I think you got to throw him a mustache. And I think he will be devastating on the loose and obviously in the tight.
I think this, one of our dirt trackers, Regan Smith, he also put together a perfect loose forward, and this loose forward has the engine of Peter Steph du Toit, the ball playing ability of Kieran Reid, and the defense of Thierry Dusautois. Kooks, how do you think you will match up with your eighth man? He could be probably put on the one side of the scrum.
Jeepers. Listen, if it's the defense of Thierry Dusautois, I think the only person who welcome, be happy to tackle. That's what we said. Is probably Thierry Dusautois. So I think it'll be a humbling. It'll be a proper clash.
Yeah, I think actually the one that I posted on Twitter as well. You can probably play in the 6 of this loose trio. So I also went with current players. I went with the tackling of Courtney Laws. Obviously, him just deleting any, especially backline players. He likes putting a big hit on them. You have the leg drive of Ardie Severe. And then you have the ball skills of Theo McFarland. And you can just probably create the best blindside flank in the world right now.
Thala, I bloody love that when you put McFarland in. Mate, that guy is ripping the Premiership.
I think he's my new favorite player.
Oh, mate,
I genuinely think he's
ripping
up there
the
now.
Prem apart. And he is cooking. He's going to be, in the next year or the year after, is going to be in the running for European Player of the Year. If not the World Player of the Year. I just don't know if he's going to play enough international rugby to get that, to be able to get that vote. But I suppose we have a World Cup next year, so he might get a shot. But from a European point of view, if he stays at Saracens, he's most certainly going to be in the running for European Player of the Year by the end of next season. I reckon he is cooking, and he deserves to be in. He's got the ball skills, he's got the speed, he's tall, he's big, he tackles. Man, he's a bloody good rugby player.
Kooks, what do you think of McFarland, Luatua, and Taufua loose trio for Samoa in November?
Oh my goodness, that will be. Oh, that is spicy. I mean, when McFarland, like Shaun said, he's been ripping it up, and Stephen Luatua is one of my. I still think if us. I look back at the All Blacks. I know they got this blind side. They've been this blind side issue, and like at the stage they had Liam Messam, Luatua, and Kaino. If Luatua was just like a little bit younger, also staying in New Zealand, you give him a blind side flank, and now I think for them playing for Samoa, that is dangerous. I hope it clicks and they cook it at the November Internationals.
So let's go to the other submissions from our dirt trackers. We have from Andre Geel, we have the power of Jonah Lomu, the speed of Perry Baker, the USA 7-star, and then the nous of Richie McCaw. Not sure about Richie McCaw's nous on the wing, but I think just his general game awareness would make this this winger a very dangerous prospect.
I reckon what he's created there, Andre, he's basically created a Rapini 2.0. I mean, the power of Lomu and the speed of Perry Baker is Rapini Tavanebuka, like copy-paste. So, hey. Imagine.
That's a dangerous prospect on the wing. I think Rian Lowe will probably get the prize for the best contribution. He says the screech of Aaron Smith, the whinge of Johnny Sexton, and the flaps of Dan Biggar. No ref will be safe. Kooks, I think that will make all refs retire from World Rugby.
Oh yeah, 100%. You should also add the shithousery of Nick White as well. On top of that, then no referee will be safe.
You took the words out of my mouth. When I saw Rian post that, I was like, shit, we need to create the most perfect 9. And literally the words that came into my mind were the shithousery of Nick White. I'd probably want that. You'd probably want the vision of Aaron Smith and the kicking ability of Jaden Hendricks. I think that would probably be one of the most perfect 9s. But yeah, the shithousery of Nick White by far. He sums it up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised Owen Farrell didn't feature in this as well, because we know he likes to have a word or two with the ref as well. And apologies to all the.
I think Sexton has overtaken Farrell in that regards. I mean, Sexton's started to make Farrell look like like the refs hero now. I mean, Sexton was unbearable in the Sharks game, but also like this is unpopular opinion, but like if I'll still rather have that on my team. Like I want someone to get playing for me. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like I like Oaks that get under like not have a go at the referee, but obviously bring up points for my team to win, get under the opposition skin. Like I'm all for that. Like if I'm playing and my captain's Johnny Sexton and some Sharks player like decks him because like he's always the referee, then his job is done. Like this man is like I'm all for shithousery. I'm all like Nick White. I'm all for that. I mean it's a big part of the game. So the more people get annoyed at Johnny Sexton, I'm like, oh, this guy's working. This is his plan. And I always think like, every rugby team needs someone like that.
Hundreds. Like, that's the thing, though. You put that player in your team's jersey and you make him captain. Like, he's done. If there's that balance, if you can do it so well that the referee is still engaging with you and not telling you to shut up, and doesn't penalize you for it, then 100%, Kooks, I agree with you. You've done your job. It's when, like, I think when Farrell came back, he had a couple of games where he blew off. It was for England when, where the ref was just like, listen, you talk to me again, I'll give the captaincy to someone else because I'm done. Like, that's where you don't want it. But like, if you can talk enough to the referee that he stays engaged with you and doesn't penalize you, and it's pissing off the other team, man, you make him your captain and your coach.
The good ones, for example, the good Oaks are going to know. They know how to walk that fine line of they know when you got to stop and when, like, because obviously like refs, for example, like someone like Sexton and Farrell, they carry a certain gravitas where refs do respect them. They got to put a clout and they know the game as well. Normally that guy that knows the rules so well, he knows when to bend and knows the referee as well. So which is a big part of the game. And honestly, people, the time you find it the most annoying is that's when it's working. Because it's working against you. Then you're like looking at your captain, like, come on, bro, like say something. Like you're just standing in while Sexton's basically like having his way with the referee. Like I was watching the game on the weekend, and some of the shots were like, oh, but why? Like, so I'm like too much to toy, like do something. Also, like, why are we letting Sexton just basically dictate how this game is going and how it throws you off so much? But I'm like, that's an unpopular opinion, but like I'm for it if it stays within the lines.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point there, Kooks. You also need to earn that reputation. I think the more of a senior citizen, excuse the pun on Johnny Sexton's case, but the more of like a respected figure you become in rugby, the easier or the more liberties you can take with how you communicate with the ref. And I mean, look, I'm trying to think, maybe the age difference between George Cleary and Johnny Sexton is not that much in any case, and that's why he can almost talk to him peer to peer. But yeah, I think as captains get a lot more experience, they can, navigate like the refs and be able to speak to them and make their case when they need to, which is, I think, why the likes of Sexton and Alan Wynne-Jones and in the Southern Hemisphere context, Richie McCaw, those sort of people get away maybe with a bit more than, a new captain like Thomas du Toit on Saturday. Shaun?
Let's be honest though. The people that everyone hates the most are often the most influential people on the park, and they're chirping. So you hating him because he's ripping your team apart, whether his mouth is open or not. So when he opens his mouth, you're like, now that's what I'm going to have a go at, because I want him off the park, or I want everyone to hate on the guy, because you don't want him there, because if he's not there, like if he doesn't influence the game with his mental game, he's going to influence it just with the way he sees the game anyway. Now he's adding another level to it. So we also hate those guys when they're not on our side, just because their abilities alone are world class. Like all the people we've mentioned, Richie McCaw, think about George Gregan, Nick White, Owen Farrell, Johnny Sexton. Those guys are all match winners, game changers, and phenomenal leaders. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah. Let's shift gears and let's go to the Rugby World Cup that started in New Zealand this weekend. And we are looking at the results from the first weekend of games. And South Africa, the women's box team had the opportunity and the privilege of opening up the tournament with their match against France. France winning that game 40 points to 5. Fiji was beaten by England 19 points to 84. That game was 14-24 at half time, and then England just went absolutely crazy in the second half. Australia fought well against the Black Ferns, but they lost unfortunately 41 points to 17. Then on Sunday, you have the USA being beaten by Italy, who are becoming a bit of a dark horse in this competition, 22 points to 10. Canada beating Japan 41 points to 5. And then the final game was Wales sneaking one over Scotland, 18 points to 15. But we'll start with our team, the Springboks, who fought really well in that game because it was 19-5 with 20 minutes to go, and the Boks had all of the advantage. And Shaun, I think the big lesson for the women's box team was, or the big positives was the set piece and how solid the set piece was, and their defense. They gave the French team nothing for most of the game.
There's not enough nice things to say about the Springbok coaching staff and the players and everything for what they've done. This year alone has probably been one of our greatest years in the women's box side, with the results we've had with our world rankings and all that. Our opening game, it was the opening game of the entire World Cup, and we play France, who are I think ranked 4 in the world. They're a formidable force. They're up in there with a chance to winning the World Cup, and we did flipping well. Our set piece, where just how we've grown as a side from where we were last year to where we are now is phenomenal. It's really good. And Babalwa made the Rugby World Rugby Mag Team of the Week, and not one French woman made it. And the writing around that was just how impressive the pack was, how much work rate the South Africans got through. So their discipline was so good. Their fitness is good. They understand what is required of them. And it is possibly the best foundation to have as a side that is on the way up, is to have those things sorted. Once those things are sorted, we get to understand ourselves as a team, understand the players around you a little bit better, and then we start playing a little bit more heads-up rugby when we get a chance. But yeah, mate, they were incredible. And we've got Fiji and England in our group as well. And I'm looking forward to that. The South African-Fiji game is going to be a cracker. But we emptied the tank, and the scoreline doesn't do the game justice. We played so exceptionally well.
No, that was the point I was going to make now, Shaun, that the scoreline is very deceptive here, because we really had France on the run a little bit, especially in that first quarter, or the third quarter of the game, or that first 20 minutes in the second half, where we were in the French 22, winning penalty after penalty, and we just couldn't manage to get over. And France just had no answers for the physicality of the Springbok team. And yeah, the forwards have a lot of credit from that game. I think another player I want to big up is Aseza Hele, the eighth man, or eighth woman, I guess, in this case. I don't know if she's just been watching Jasper Visa videos, but it just seems like we have another uncompromising ball carrying number 8 in our Springbok ranks as well. She just, every time she took the ball, she just made meters and was just beating defenders the whole time. Every time that she had an opportunity to take the ball up and to make tackles, she made the tackles. I think she was second for most tackles made in the Springbok team. And she, with making the second most tackles, she beat the most defenders with 4 and made 96 meters, which is massive for a forward. She made the most meters in the game. So she had an all-round game. I didn't really watch the other games, but I was a bit surprised she didn't make that Rugby World Mag Team of the Week, because I thought she was the most impressive player from that game. But yeah, I think there was a lot of credit from the forwards, and they'll have to be the ones that stand up in that game against Fiji. because that Fiji backline, especially in that first half, they looked very dangerous. And I think it'll be almost like a classical men's game in that sense that Fiji has the backs and has the ability to score from everywhere. But if the Springboks want to win, they have to keep it tight and try to play it up front, because if the ball goes wide, they'll have some trouble. I think another quick shout out can be made to the number 12 that for the Springboks, Apiwe Ngwevu, who really was just a solid presence in the midfield. She carried the ball up at times when she was needed. She was able to beat some defenders, and she was very strong in defense as well. I think a lot. She seems to be her and Zandile Mpupa are the leaders of that defense. And anytime the French were trying to do a nice move out of the back, and look, the French, I think, once they turned it on, with Laura Santos and Caroline Ruan, like both of them as halfbacks are just very dangerous. But they were shut down for most of the game up until the last quarter when France was able to get away from us.
Yeah, the midfield, I was going to have a chat about when you mentioned Guevo. I remembered how well she did on the weekend. And our centre pairing is actually quite handy. They seem to have quite they seem to have a good understanding. One that can most certainly get better. I think they're not as connected as say De Lendi and Lukanya, if you understand what I'm saying in terms of like that sort of pairing. But they definitely have the goods to probably play the rest of the tournament together. They're really, really classy. And what you mentioned about Fiji is right. I think it's going to be a classic battle of a fitness and who sort of loses that focus first, because our defense is pretty handy. We need to stay really, really tight, and our kicks, when we are kicking onto Fiji, who we play on Sunday, we need to make sure that our kicks are hopefully finding grass, but that our defensive lines are coming up pretty tight, because we can't allow Fiji to run at us. This is basically a conversation, as you mentioned, like we'd probably be having if the men's sides were playing. So, we really need to just be focused and sorted on our defense. I think Fiji, we are probably have got more in our tank. I think Fiji were just absolutely hammering away at England on Saturday and just fell off at the end. England just managed to, England did so well to just absorb and then strike. So, I think it'll be a battle of the fitness between us two, and both sides will be picking that game as a win. So we need to just make sure that we are super disciplined on defense when we sorting out their kick, force them into errors, and then hopefully crush them after that.
Shaun, and a few words on the Australia versus New Zealand game, which was probably the game of the weekend.
What a game. That first half, that first 20, 30 minutes, it looked like Australia were going to put 25, 35 points on New Zealand. They were just absolutely all over them, hammering away. Some incredible rugby players. That game, I was so surprised at the accuracy and the length of some of the passing, like the width that they were getting with 2 to 3 passes, just going out wide. Incredible. And I really thought New Zealand were properly under the pump. If anyone ever gets a chance, go back and watch the haka again. The start of that game, Australia versus New Zealand, we all know the history around the two countries, just in general and in rugby. It was flippin' emotional. It was flippin' one of the best I've seen in a long time. Like, it was great. And Australia were up for it. And they probably should have scored one extra try, because they were 17-0 up. And then when New Zealand kicked into gear, they went and scored 41 unanswered points. And my word, when they got going, they really looked unstoppable, and it shows with the score. But it's, I tell you, New Zealand and England right now are probably the favorites, and I'm not sure how the group stages and the knockout stages work, but if it works out, they'll play each other in the final, and obviously Australia will be in there with the Sharps. They'd want to make a little bit of a comeback, but as it stands now, England-New Zealand final would be an absolute treat to watch. But the Kiwis are looking great, and on home soil with extra pressure, they really put their hands up.
Yeah, I don't know who allowed it. I don't know who allowed Portia Woodman and Ruby Tui to be in the same team and to be the wings of one team. That is just ridiculous. And Ruby
It's
just had a
insane.
fantastic game.
Insane. And the thing is, I mean, Ruby 2 ran 133 meters. It's ridiculous.
Crazy.
And she's got a hat trick. She's incredible. She's probably up there, one of the best rugby players, in the top 5 rugby players in the world at the moment. She's ridiculous. She's doing it all. She's turnovers, runs, her work rate's ridiculous. Kooks, you shared a tweet about it, about her work rate and how she plays. Like, she's ridiculous at the moment, and she's such a beaut to listen to for interviews. She speaks well. She's super honest and so relaxed. She's a great ambassador for the sport.
And like you said, Shaun, like it's like she was so good in the weekend. I mean, like the one trial for Woodman's trial where where Australia clears, she catches the ball out wide, plays the pass inside, manages to be first received for the next 2 phases, and still push her Woodman away for the try. Like, she's basically like, she was wild. I thought she was a massive difference. I remember the first 20 minutes, like I really thought, I mean, Australia came out firing, and the yellow card came out. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a long day for the Black Ferns. But you can see the work that Wayne Smith's done there. I thought, like you said, the accuracy of the Black Ferns was, especially after the terrible 20-25 minutes they had, it was a joy to watch. But yeah, having Portia Woodman and Ruby Tui in the same team, it's actually a cheat code. Like, someone has to, we have to send a complaint to World Rugby.
They've got a cheat code, but what they've done is they've been quite nice to everyone. They've put them as far away from the play as possible. You know, one's on the left wing, one's on the right wing. Like, that's like the nicest thing that the coaches could have done for anyone. Like, we have to play them, so we'll put them as far away from everyone as possible. Not that helped much, because they're massively involved in everything. But yeah, well, I can't wait. I cannot wait for this weekend to watch more of it. I'm going to try and catch up on some of the games that I missed. But the bonus of it being in New Zealand is it's on super early in the morning. So we get a whole full day of rugby.
Yeah, and just to explain to everyone, because just how the tournament works. So there's 3 pool games there's 3 pools, and three pools of 4 teams. So in our pool for the Boks, we have France, the 4th best team in the world, England, the best team in the world, and Fiji. And then after the pool stages, it goes to the quarterfinals. So in the quarterfinals, the qualifiers will be the 2 best teams in each of the pools, and then 2 of the best 3rd place teams. So because of the numbers, that means that we have to be at least one of those 2 best 3rd place teams, or at least second, if we want to qualify for the quarterfinals. So, realistically, of course, the Bok team will probably not fancy their chances to beat England and to end their 26 or 25 match winning streak at the moment. So we'll have to hope to be one of the best 3rd place teams in order to qualify for the quarterfinals. And how it looks right now, with the results from the first weekend, we probably will need not only a win, but probably it will help us to get some points on Fiji, so that if it comes down to points differences and all that sort of stuff, because we'll have to save some in the bank for England, and hopefully ask them to not beat us by a few points. So all in all, if we want to qualify for the quarterfinals, it is possible, which is a great thing, but we need to win against Fiji, and we probably need to win quite well. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes on in the weekend. I think the other pools are also quite strong, with New Zealand, Australia, and Wales and Scotland. That has quite a high standard in the pool. Wales and Scotland have recently professionalized their game. Australia, is probably, like they've had the least rugby, but they have so much talent, especially from the sevens players that they have. Emma Chancellor is a really great loose forward as well. Then the Canada, USA, Italy, Japan pool is also really good. I think it's, like I said, Italy might be a bit of a dark horse that could sneak into a semi-final, and I don't think that'll be much of a surprise. And yeah, just a shout out to Squid Rugby. He did a preview and looked at all the teams in the World Cup, so you can watch those 3 videos. I think they're basically all 15 minutes each, so just almost less than an hour of your time, and you'll be at least much more knowledgeable about the women's rugby game. And yeah, I think there's a lot of content creators from around the world that are talking about this. And yeah, I think you need to jump onto this World Cup as soon as possible because it'll be fantastic and there's some great rugby to watch. So let's move to the United Rugby Championship. Oh, Shaun?
Thala, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to chat about the Wales Scotland game.
Go for it.
I didn't realize you were going to wrap up. I was hoping to sneak in there. I'm so sorry, but what an absolute cracking game of rugby! And I'll tell you something. So there's a South African guy that's coaching the defence of the Scotland women, Tyrone Holmes. He has one cap for Scotland. He's a Cape Town lad. But Scotland really, really can consider themselves unlucky in that game. I really thought, Wales had their backs against the wall for plenty long time, and probably I would think would have been lucky to only get one yellow card. I thought the referee was very, very lenient with multiple warnings, and Scotland managed to claw back and level things up after being all over Wales. And then in the 85th minute, Wales get awarded a penalty, and it was shit. I can't remember how far out it was, but it wasn't bang in front of the poles. Like, it was in front of the poles, it was maybe like 35, 40 meters away. And Kira Bevan stepped up. She came off the bench and she slotted it to win. Flippin' brilliant. And it's massive in terms of their tournament. But an absolutely great game of rugby. Scotland were all over them. Wales just defended, held on, and then managed to seal it at the death. So yeah, all in all, it was a good weekend of opening games of rugby.
And as Wales are facing New Zealand in this weekend's game, so that'll be a big game to also see if Wales can maybe. I think the New Zealand team is still on their growth journey because they've just transferred to Wayne Smith being the head coach. So the possibility of a shock is in the offing as well. I think New Zealand will be a big wildcard team in this tournament. But yeah, I think next week games, they're all quality. England versus France being one of them, that'll be the main game on Saturday. I think, that's usually that's the big game in the Six Nations. And France has been the one team that's given England a game in the last 2 years. So we'll have to see how France goes. They do seem to be on a bit of a downturn. They lost to Italy before the tournament, and they made hard work of beating the Boks on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Wales is playing New Zealand at 4, and then at 6:45 for the South African viewers, South Africa is playing Fiji. So that will be the big game for everyone to watch on Sunday. Kooks, I think you can make an exception to wake up at 6:45 on a Sunday for the Bok team.
No, I'll definitely be awake. Not like those losers in Australia.
It works every time.
We should just name our pod the 7 a.m. kickoff pod just for shits and giggles.
You can give it like at 7 o'clock for a World Cup. World Cup, it's every 4 years. None of those idiots have played a Cup every year and they just decided to play rugby on a Thursday because they can't plan properly.
Let's move to the URC then. A balanced weekend finally for the South African teams with 2 wins and 2 losses. All 4 South African teams were away. The 2 winners were the Lions beating Edinburgh 22 points to 19 in a tight game. And the Stormers winning 37 points to 20 in Parma against Zebre. And then losses for the Sharks. They lost 54 points to 34 against Leinster, and what turned out to be a bit of a basketball game, it seemed like. And then Glasgow beating the Bulls 35 points to 21, which is actually quite a comprehensive win in some respects. So let's start with the Lions game. I think the Lions are probably the biggest surprise team for most viewers, and especially for viewers in South Africa. Kooks, I think I'm not too sure where to start with the Lions, except to go it seems like they are making sure they are getting all their young players together and playing a really good brand of rugby at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Lions have, for me, have been the story so far from the South African side of the URC. I mean, to go and we all probably figured they'll go 0 for 3 on tour and either come back with 3 wins and 3 good wins. I mean, that's a very good Edinburgh side that beat on the weekend. And, watching the game, for about 60 minutes, it sort of looked like Edinburgh had chances to sort of pull away. They kept making silly errors, but I thought the Lions defensively were fantastic again. I think for me, that's been the big story about the Lions is how great they've been defensively. And I thought Jacques Fries, obviously, he's the defensive coach, so he's done an amazing job with that young side. And you sort of thought come at the end of the season, because the number of players that lost, you're like, oh, they're going to struggle. But I mean, Henk van Wyk, I mean, obviously he's getting all the plaudits, but I think for me, an unsung hero has been someone like Marius Lowe, who has been incredible for them since he's come over. Because I mean, they lost Burger Wonder last year, who was arguably one of the best 12s, SA 12s in the competition, and for him to come in, and the captain for Marius Lowe to come and step up, and he's been so impressive. And I mean, like you said, like there's Ruan Venter, like the Henk van Wyks, Johnny Lombard. I mean, there's so many guys who stood up, but just an incredible story. And I think I for one didn't see it coming, and I'm happy to be proven wrong by this Lions side.
Yeah, I think there's that meme that goes around on Twitter a lot of Shaquille O'Neal going, "I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game," and that I feel like is my response to Marius Lowe. I just did not see him being this good for the Lions. I thought he was just a more of a stopgap signing for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I think we had seen him obviously at the Sharks, and it was obviously at the Sharks. You kind of never felt like that jersey was his own, because I mean, there was SJs, and then you cover 13, there's there. But sort of seeing him at the Lions and come across and sort of be like you one of our big marquee signings, and you come to fill in a void that Burger's left. And I thought, yeah, he's been phenomenal. I think it just shows for us, just adds even more depth for us, and to know that arguably our weakest, I mean, in inverted commas, so the African side goes on tour and wins 3 games. I think it puts us in a good position going forward in the competition. I mean, last year we couldn't buy a win. All the SSL couldn't buy a win at this stage. Now it's like we just like winning everywhere. So that's very exciting.
And then Kooks, we know you're our man at Supersport, so you might have the inside scoop here. What is the beef between Ruan Venter and Hamish Watson? Did Hamish Watson say something to him before the game? Like, because it just looked like Venter was taking it personally against him on Friday night.
Shame. Oh man, poor Hamish Watson. Was it last year's Six Nations where he probably made like 1,000 tackles and he didn't miss none?
He hasn't missed a tackle, I think, in 2 years in Test rugby or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And Ruan Venter was just like, like that. Or maybe Ruan Venter really wanted someone else to go on the Lions tour, and Hamish Watson stopped one of his players and going there. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna take this out on you. I mean, also these kids have got no respect these days for. I mean, this is a British, this is a lion we're talking about. 19 years old, and he bounces him, and poor he's getting carted off, and then he's probably looking at them like, is this the Hamish Watson you guys have told me that he's so good? Like,
but mate, he didn't bounce him. Like, Hamish Watson actually got airtime. He flew away. Like, if you cleared him out that far away from the ruck, you get blown up for pushing him too far away from the ruck. That's how far he was pushed away.
Sure. If I'm Hamish Watson, I'm not coming back until my hair is long again. I think Hamish Watson was sort of cutting his hair. Maybe the love got to me. Like, no, let me cut my hair. Maybe there's a few more deals coming, so I'm gonna look the part for social media. I think Hamish Watson still needs to grow his hair out again and just go back to tackling 9,000 Irishmen and Scotsmen, because Ruan Venter's oh man, that was too much.
No, that was I think. I don't know what got into him. I don't know what he ate in the morning, but he just went and just made it personal with him. There was even that big hit, the tackle that he made on Watson as well. And to make a lion like Watson, especially one known for his tackling fly like that, geez, he must be a special talent. I think also quick shout outs. Go on, Shaun, sorry.
Maybe he was just like, well, you're actually not a real lion. I'm a real lion. Maybe that's what he turned. Maybe he was like, I don't respect those lions. I'll show you what a lion is. But flip, manhandled.
Have you even seen a lion before, Hamish Watson? I think there was definitely something personal there. I think also some shout-outs. I think we've mentioned Henk van Wyk. He's just turning on performance after performance. Shaun, I had a quick poll on the Saturday morning, just asking people what their opinion is on which Lions player should be a bolter for the Springbok select squad. And my options were Steve Sithole, Henko van Wyk, Gianni Lombard. I can't remember what the fourth option was now. But yeah, those are three of the options. And Henko van Wyk just ran away with it. Shaun, I think he just had another impressive game, and he just looks the part. In attack, he looks really good, but I think the most impressive thing is this work rate and this defensive work that he does every game.
Yeah, so Jared did an incredible gift drop on Henko van Wyk 2 weeks ago, and he's highlighting a lot of like his defensive abilities, what he does, how he drifts across, the decisions he makes, and what he does to the attackers. He's also a youngster, but he's quite bulky. You know, he's a big kid. He's got quite a lot of gas as well, so he's able to make up for an error quite quickly, a la Rico Ioane. You know, so like that's not like overshadowing all the other good work he does. You know, if he makes an error, he's young, he manages to fix it. He's got an incredible work rate. Like he's loving life. He's the kid that he's like, you know, I just want to be a professional rugby player. And then when he becomes one, he's like, this is the best time of my life. I'm just going to make sure that everyone knows that this is what I want to do. And he's cooking at the moment. And the best part is what I'm loving about this side is there's so many youngsters, like with the greatest of respect to the Lions and the players, there's a lot of guys there that people, like you wouldn't put them in other sides. And they're all coming up, they're playing together, they're playing for each other, and they're performing, you know, not going there to try and just show off for themselves and stuff like that. He's a great prospect. I think he could probably fit reasonably well in the wing as well if you need him there. But he really looks quality at 13 on defense and on attack. So I definitely think he's someone to look out for in the future. He definitely has a future. He's gonna be a very, very good pro club rugby player, and I'd like to see him take the step up above that. I think he's got the goods to be in the game for many, many years. I'd like to see if he can push it up into test level in the future. He's still a youngster.
Yeah, typical South Africa. You have years where you don't really have too many quality 13s, and now it's raining quality 13s. And now Henko van Wyk is just joining that illustrious line. And last quick shout out is to that Lions 8, 9, 10 combination. Kooks, Frankie Horn, Sanele Nohamba, and Gianni Lombard. I think all of them in some ways have either not really been in the foreground of like, you know, options in their positions because there's players playing in the other unions are playing better, but they've had a great start to the season. Gianni Lombard has come back well from his injury and come back from Japan. Frankie Horn, he just looks like such a solid number 8. And I don't know if it's because of the scrum cap, but like there is a lot of Warren Whiteley in him. And Nohamba's just had a bit of a renaissance in Joburg so far.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Gianni Lombard for me is a big story of him coming back from Japan and he's playing well. We always knew the talent was there. So it's great to see him make a step up. And obviously I like the way they're using the 210s. I mean, they've got Jordan Hendrickson as well, and they've got Gianni Lombard. And sort of it's a nice way to see them push out there to see who can be the big Lions 10. I mean, obviously I still lean towards Jordan Hendrickson. I'd love to see Lombard at 15, maybe giving a run there. But I think obviously at the moment they're going with the experience of boobies there, and I'm just good to see it. But yeah, Frankie Horn as well, he's been churning out performance after performance, and yeah, Mohamba is just great to see him playing rugby again, and playing good rugby again. But I think the Lions is you look at their squad and the guys are playing well, the guys are making step ups. I mean, if Morne van der Berg is coming off your bench, who may not have the strongest game on Friday, but if he's coming off your bench, you know your scrum off stocks are sitting nice because I'm a big Morne van der Berg fan, but it's just nice to see Mohamba playing well and playing consistent rugby. But I'm really excited with this Lions project, and at this rate, you could have 4 SSIs in the playoffs. I mean, I feel like we're the New Zealand team with the URC.
Yeah, maybe let's save that for a little bit later because I think I got myself into trouble with England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales and Italian fans for my tweet suggesting the same. Let's move to the Stormers versus Zebra game. Stormers starting quite well. They open up a big gap in the first half, but Zebra came back as they always do in the second half. I think as Kooks has tweeted every week, you need to remember that Zebra is a great second half team. So it looked tight for a while, but then the Storms were able to come away and get the bonus point. And Shaun, I think if people are wanting the Sacha Mngomezulu hype train to slow down a little bit, they were well disappointed on Saturday because he put in a great performance. And I'm sure we're going to try to make him president by the end of next week now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, credit to you. You picked him to start at 12. I didn't think that he couldn't play 12. I just didn't think that he'd be doing it in the URC so soon as a starter. I really wanted him to focus and be in at 10, but Dobbo had different ideas about it, and that's why he's the coach, and I'm just on Twitter, because Sacha Mngomezulu, what a game! Everyone has been banging on about it, and then the hype train is not going to slow down. He's a youngster. He did make errors, but he made up for it really, really well. He had Libok on his inside. He had Alipatelua on his outside. He had Willemse coming in from fullback. So he had enough around him from guys that he's been with since last year, because he made his URC debut last year. He was very much on the fringes, but very handy at 12. And he was handed the kicking duties as well, which I was actually super happy to see, because Libok's been kicking the whole time. But with Willemse there and Libok there, you can give Mngomezulu the ball and say, kick, get your eye, get it sorted out. If it doesn't work, we've got options. So don't stress. There's no pressure, And the kid's got the goods. There's no doubt about it. Everyone knew it. You just need to see that one game and to know it for sure. And he stood up at 12. You can't hide away at 12. That is probably the one position you cannot hide away on. 12 and 13. If you're hiding away at 10, they could move some players around and whatnot. But in the midfield, you're there front and center. So incredible performance. He racked up a whole bunch of points and man of the match. He got man of the match, right?
I think so. I think he did. Yeah,
well, he did in my eyes, so I'm happy with that.
Which is all that matters, I think.
Even before we go the game, I feel like I've got to give Dobbo a shout out. Talking about Sacha at 12. Thala, you guys know on Twitter there's a whole big thing about letting the hoopers hoop in the basketball tournament. Just let the guys play. And Dobbo is the president, CEO, minister of letting the hoopers hoop. If you want to see ballers, Dobbo will organize it for you. Because I was looking at the Stormers team. I was like, that backline is like, I'm like, Dobbo's just put Willemse out there, Sacha, and Marnie, and Loyua, and it's like Angelo Davids. I'm just like Hudsenberg, and like we all still waiting. Like sometimes we sit back at SA fans, like we get these guys who are ballers and great to watch and fan favorites or players for the streets. And inside of sometimes we tend to see like maybe one of them, or maybe we should try and put Dobbo's like, you know what, guys, when the hoopers to hoop, when the guys to cook, just put them on one big pot and let's see what happens. So shout out to Dobbo, and it's such a, and I just think what he does is also, I think you can see the camaraderie in the way the Stormers play. And I know for a long time the Stormers are known to be this defensive side, especially during Super Rugby. And for them now to flip it over to become like the streets team, because everyone loves watching the Stormers play now because the hoopers are hooping.
No, they're definitely hooping. And if you can put out a backline of Herschel Yankees, Mani Lebok, Sacha Mngomezulu, Alipati Leua, Angelo Davids, and Suleiman Hudsenberg in the wing, and Damien Willemse at fullback, that is absolutely insane amount of talent. And we've gone with Dobbo, I think this time last year, or maybe near December, we were talking last year about why is he not playing Gelant, Willemse, and Lebok in the same backline? Like, he should just let the players go and let them express themselves, let the hoopers hoop. And now he's gone full 180 on that. So it's been great that he's definitely the pastor, the CEO, like you said, of the let the hoopers hoop movement. Another player to shout out, Kooks, God.
I was going to say, like, if there's any player stuck in a union somewhere that us as fans or the Twitter streets feel like they need to express themselves, we got to send him down to province. I mean, if really wants to retire anytime soon from internationals or wants to finish up in Cape Town, he's got to go to the Stormers. I mean, any player that we feel like is a baller and is like be restricted somewhere, we've got to send him down to the Stormers. That's where they got to be from now on.
One to see Leslie Milani. Anyway, another player to shout out is Ruan Venter, and I think he had a really good game himself on Saturday. He, when you look at his stats, 3 defenders beaten, 30 meters made, and 14 tackles as well. I think Shaun, I think he's definitely looking like, he's only 21 this year, and he's looking like another quality hooker option to add for the future as well.
Yeah, very, very handy. And he played a couple of times last season. I was a little bit skeptical, but to be fair, I was skeptical about quite a few a few things that were happening at Western Province and Stormers last year. So, but I thought it might have been a bit young and a bit green. And obviously the Stormers were struggling with hookers at the time as well. But he's really, really classy. Like, he's really lifted his game up nicely. He's really sort of gone into pro rugby and the URC quite seamlessly. From a line-out point of view, Stormers did okay. They only lost 3 of their 16 lineouts. They had a whole bunch of them. So listen, 81% is not ideal, but it's where they are. And, he's definitely going to be in the match day 23 moving forward. And when Dweba comes back, I reckon he's definitely there and thereabouts. So we'll be seeing a lot more of him.
Let's move now to the Sharks versus Leinster game. And I think, and there's 2 Sharks fans on this podcast, so maybe I should ask them before making my own assumptions. Kooks, is it more a case of the Sharks? Is it a case where you can be happy as a Sharks fan that maybe that they performed quite well on Saturday?
Yes and no, Thala. It's a weird game because, like, I'll give you an example which sort of summed the game up. Where the Sharks went up 12-10, and you just scored, playing good rugby, received the kickoff, and then Grant Williams kicks the ball out straight out of the full straight afterwards. Leinster goes and scores. And like, you sit there and you're like, for every good the Sharks did, there was a mistake and Leinster punish. Like, if there's ever a way where you sort of see what Leinster is, I'll watch that game and see what happens when you make mistakes. They will pick you off. Sharks showed a lot of glimpses. I think the Sharks, for me, with ball in hand at the moment, are looking very, very good. A lot more threatening than they did last season. And it's exciting to see. I mean, like, Takira Abrams has been sensational since getting back. But, I think just like some costly mistakes, that's the big one on the weekend. Just like silly areas where you're playing as a quality side like Leinster. They got like Johnny Sexton back. You will get punished, and especially going down 14 men in at the RDS, and with obviously the URC coach on the bench, you're not gonna. It's a recipe for disaster, and I think the Sharks will take a lot out of that. But I think they'll be frustrated that, again, like most sides play against Leinster, sort of being in that boat where it's like, we could have had them if we didn't make these 2 or 3 areas, and that's Leinster for you. I thought Leinster they were also very good, and they sort of slowly but surely clicking into gear as well. But it's yes and no, like, a lot of positives, but just too many silly areas.
Shaun, what's the most positive part of the Sharks game before we start laying into them?
I was winding up to have a go, but I think the most positive thing is going to the RDS and scoring 34 points. As much as Leinster do well to win games, they play really well. They're almost like a metronome. Very often they go through, the basics, and they do it really well, and they'll just punish you. And before you know it, you're staring down the barrel of 50 points, which the Sharks did eventually. But it was different. The Sharks scored 5 tries, and that's huge. I think, like, that's probably what they wanted. They were like, we've got to play rugby. We've got to score points if we want to win this game. And it fell away at the end. They were in in with a shout for a long time. But the positives is going out and scoring those points and playing that rugby and going down and then fighting it back before the giving it up after doing something good. They were kind of a big arm wrestle on, and I thought they held out Leinster well, but just didn't have it for 80 minutes.
Yeah, and like you guys have mentioned, I think some good tries were scored, and like Fakia Abraham's looking really good and looking really threatening. That move that opened up the Leinster defense for Apelele Fasi to score is also really good. But yeah, I think Kooks, you mentioned some of the silly mistakes that let Leinster back in. Shaun, yeah, let's turn on to the other side of the coin about like what's irking you about their performance on Saturday.
Well, it's not just Saturday; it's this whole season, and quite a lot of last season. They make a lot of errors, and they've been good enough to get wins, but also not good enough to get wins last season. But this season, they've been doing well enough to play well, go to sleep, and still win a game. In the most part, and it needed to not happen on Saturday. They needed to play well and stay playing well, and they were punished for their errors. And that's what's going to happen. That's what European rugby is all about. And it's the same in Super Rugby. To be very honest, you play Super Rugby, you're not on your game in Super Rugby. The chances of you taking 30 to 40 points are good, and that's the issue that the Sharks need to fix. There's something like they need to go out and have a whole bunch of beers and just shoot it out. Like find out what's going on, where the issues lie, get it fixed, and because they're getting by on just purely on their talent and the depth in their squad. But if you look at Leinster, I mean, Leinster named a strong side. So the Sharks, very few people expected the Sharks to win, but the Sharks were competitive. Leinster named a strong side. Okay, they were up. I mean, Jason Jenkins. Another shout out to Jason Jenkins, who is playing some great rugby at Leinster. He's very quickly turned into a hero there. But I mean, Leinster lost Ruddock early in the game, 5 minutes in. That's huge. Then they lost Lama. Okay, the only downside of them losing Lama was they brought Ringrose on, who played really well. Defensively, he was a bit leaky. The irony behind the whole Ringrose thing is if Lama was on, I think the Sharks probably would have scored maybe one or two less tries. I thought, Lama would have been better as a defensive option. Ringrose played out wide. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was playing on the wing when he came on. So, like that's the thing. The Sharks need to minimize their errors. Like this whole, I'm going to score more than you to win the game, even though we play badly, is not sustainable. Like it's exciting, but you are more upset by that at the end of the game because you can be better. And that's what the Sharks need to be. Just quite frankly, they need to be better.
Kooks, I mean, we talked about Dobbo leading the Hoopers Hoop in Cape Town, but yeah, what's the difference here in Durban? Is Everett letting the Hoopers hoop, or the Hoopers hooping too much? Like there's so much talent in the Sharks team, and I suspect / expect that they'll probably bring in a lot of the Springbok players that weren't able to play in the last few weeks into the team on Saturday because they have a home game. Why isn't it not coming together for them? Is it a matter of chemistry, like Shaun has mentioned?
I think for the Sharks it's so tough because I saw a couple of tweets that going to ask the Sharks why we're not playing the Springboks, and unfortunately the Sharks are in a situation where they box it's Kulisi, Eben Etzebeth, what you call it, and like Ox and Mapimpi and guys who are critical members of the Springboks, the guys who play week in, week out. I mean, guys, Sharks fans may hate me, but if I don't see Evan Nesbitt playing for the Sharks until next year, I'm going to be a very happy man because that oak needs all the rest in the world. I mean, you can't ask me to play 15 tests a year and then go and play, and but you get paid. But I think the Sharks. I think for them, the chemistry part is going to be the hardest to put together because of for me, I feel there's so many Boks leaving, and you sort of try and integrate all them back. And that's the hard part that Shaun is going to work with. You look at the Stormers, for example, like they'll lose someone like Damon Willemse, and they'll lose someone like Osho Yankees, when they come back, they come back seamlessly, because that's sort of when, like Darren Willemse was at the start of the season, wasn't a starting Springbok. So Dobbo sort of built that side around how they want to play. So when he comes back, he fits back in seamlessly. Oceangus at the beginning with the Sharks is the guys haven't spent a lot of time together. And yes, they've had a preseason, but then the box disappear for 6 weeks, and then they come back, and then now you got to integrate all the box coming back. I think it's a lot tougher for Shaun Everett, and I don't know how you do it,
mate. You've absolutely nailed it. Like the Stormers last year grew through all of that, the pressure, all that shit that was going on, galvanized them. And the Stormers and Western Province grew together as a team. And by team, I mean like all the squad players and the outside fringe players. And they grew up together, and they've created what we're seeing now is part of the Stormers, where the Sharks have got so many new players and so many new things. They almost seem to have lost their identity. They're like waiting for the players and the guys to just kind of do it. Like I'm definitely speaking out of turn in what I'm saying, and I'm not saying that they're not trying to do that, but that's how it looks like from the outside, where they are not. When the Springboks and everyone comes back, they're kind of like, well, it's going to have to work now because look at all this quality we've got. But those guys also need the direction. They're not going to come in and say, this is how we do it. This is how we play at the Sharks. If you look at a lot of those Springbok, well, if you look at Etzebeth and Kolisi and Obanambi, they're all very new to the Sharks. So they're not going to go in and start dictating how things go. That needs to come from the team. It needs to come from the management, from the wider, it comes from the fringe players, from the under-20s and stuff like that. Like, what is our ethos? How are we working? You fit in. Those players are not going to take over. They will need to fit in. They do need some direction there. And it's nothing bad about the Springboks. It's really how the team, they fit into a team environment. What's best for the team? They are not the team. They're coming back into the team. They don't dictate what's going on. The Sharks have to dictate that. And I think that's what's possibly missing. Well, I think that's the kind of dynamic that's very different at the Sharks and at the Stormers, and what the Sharks are striving to get. Because Jake White's created that at the Bulls.
100%, Shaun. I think, and I think obviously, you look at, you look at the sort of the camaraderie in the camp. It's there. I think everyone gets along. I think it's just, like I said, it's just about playing, spending. I think the Sharks, if there's ever a side, for example, that needs to spend at least like 3-4 months together, it's them. Because if you look at with the Springboks, they sort of suffer the most when the internationals are away, because it's like with the Stormers, like you look at, like I said, they all built together under Jake. They all sort of grew and built together, and they weren't losing like the spine of their team. They were able to keep the Kroblers and the Nokias and the Ariflows, and then the more they all built through that. With the Sharks, it's like you're losing Seakulisi, you're losing Lukhanyo you're losing Mapimpi, you're losing when Fas was away, and you lose now you got to add Evan Etzebeth into that mix. You almost like the Sharks sort of need to spend, because even now they'll come together for about 3 weeks and the Boks leave again for a month. So it's like I think the Sharks, I think every year they'll sort of be that side that gets better come February, March, April, when the guys spend more time together, because that's the big difference with the new competitions. Because I mean, when you play Super Rugby, the guys play end of the year tour, rest in December, but they still come back in January. You sort of spend a 6-week period before Super Rugby before you play. Now it's guys are coming back mid-competition. So, for example, if Evan Etzebeth's available and Chris available this weekend, that's after the guys get back from Italy. So those guys, they've been in South Africa waiting. Now you've got to try to integrate them for a week of rugby, and then they're going to leave again. So as much, I'm not sure Everett is under a lot of pressure, but he arguably probably has the biggest job, because there's a lot to try and build the Sharks and to go moving forward. And I think that's going to be the biggest one, integrating a lot of new guys into what they're trying to build now.
Yeah, these will be the issues now that the Sharks will have to navigate in the next few weeks. They're coming back home. They're facing Glasgow and Ulster the next few weeks. So hopefully they can get a run of wins before the November break. Shaun, let's start with you with the Bulls game. Glasgow winning 35 points to 21 against the Bulls. It's the Bulls' first loss of the competition this season. Yeah, from what you saw of the game, what do you think was the big thing that the Bulls didn't do on Saturday?
Play rugby. That's a bit harsh. Glasgow. Yeah, sheesh, I'm not making any friends, but yeah, it's okay. I'll keyboard warrior this. Glasgow. So what I didn't realize is I don't think, and I speak under correction, but I know it's a long time, but I think it's 2 years now Glasgow haven't lost at home. And I really honestly, like with the Bulls, it's the first time the Bulls have ever played there. I was like, it wouldn't really matter for the Bulls. I think the Bulls as a team and a squad, and with Jake White, I think they would have, they would have been able to talk around through it and go through there. But the Bulls were just not at the races. Like is probably the nicest way of putting it. They just didn't get up for it. They were bullied. Ulrich Lowe was getting involved in a few niggles and a few goodies. I will say something though. There was a little bit of a dust up between George Horn and Ulrich Lowe, and there is a very, very. If you watch the video of it, there's a very distinct moment where Horn literally assumes the fetal position, and you can see he's fearing his life because he grabbed Ulrich Lowe, and then Ulrich Lowe was on top of him and over him, and there were just bodies flying, trying to clear Lowe off, and Lowe was sticking to him like a limpet, and I probably some poo came out. Like he just really shat himself. It was incredible. But I digress. Like the Bulls just didn't come to the party. They really struggled. It's hard to think of one player that didn't perform for the Bulls. We're expecting the Bulls to win, but the cold hard truth is Glasgow Warriors pitched up to play and they outplayed the Bulls. They really came there with a proper game plan. They sorted it out and they really just dominated. Like they dominated the tackle numbers. They made more. They've covered the top 3 tackles. Cancellieri was flipping out of this world. The way he was playing, the gaps he was taking, the work he was doing, the passes he was squeezing off was ridiculous, like ridiculous. And another guy that needs a mention is Tui Pilotu, who I thought was phenomenal. Like Mackay was his first game back, was also ripping the Bulls to shreds, but Tui Pilotu in the backs was probably the player for me, probably the best player. He was hard, he was abrasive, he was putting in kicks, he was passing, he was running, he was doing all sorts of goodies. But yeah, the bottom line is the Bulls were just blown away. They didn't get a foothold. Glasgow executed everything they needed to do to absolute perfection.
Yeah, if you look at the stats here, Glasgow, when you're looking at turnovers, Glasgow had 11 turnovers made by their players, while the Bulls had only 3. So that's probably one way to lose a rugby match. Shout out to Xander Ferguson, the tight head prop for Glasgow, who had 4 turnovers in the game, along with 15 tackles. He was the 3rd highest tackler, and he made the most turnovers in the game. A brilliant game from him. Sintu Majezi as well, against his old side, making 2 turnovers, coming on in the second half. So he had a good game. It looks like, but I think that the stat that damns the Bulls the most is the 28 missed tackles that they had against Glasgow. That's just unacceptable. Kooks, I think, Jake White this week was saying that you can't play someone like Jan Goosen with his injury history on his knee. You can't play him in those 4D Astro pitches. It seems like every time Jake White disrespects an overseas opponent, their team gets beaten. I mean, remember last year with Connacht, where he basically said that they're a Leinster B or C team. So maybe not the best tactic to go forward with for Jake.
Definitely not. I think, every time Jake sort of always shoots stuff in the foot, and the team sort of give that Michael Jordan meme, where they took it personally. But yeah, like Sean said, but it's like, Bulls do tend to pull out these weird performances out of nowhere, where it's just like Saturday's performance was the Hearts again. I was like, where did this come from? like they're playing such good rugby before, and but I know one thing with the Bulls, they will bounce back. I think they do tend to have. I don't know. It's like sometimes it's like something like when the Crusaders would just like wake up one morning and just like lose the Western Force. You think yourself like what are we doing here? Like like earlier this year, that's the Waratahs. You know, what are we doing here? And then they'll go on this run again. So I'm not too worried about the Blue Bulls, but I think Jake should just from now on just overhype his opposition.
Jack White kind of strikes me as the coach that today he'll just basically send a WhatsApp to all the players saying, "Don't even bother bringing your gum guards. Just bring your running shoes to training." Like that's kind of what's going to happen on Monday. They're going to all run a marathon, and during that time, no one's allowed to talk. You just need to think about what you've done wrong, and we'll reevaluate and sort everything out. Start a new page on Tuesday.
But even that should also, like, for me, it looks like those, like, it reminds me of one of the game I coached when I was still coaching Ruggers, and we were so poor, but like we did everything wrong. Like, it was like one of the performances, was like you see, World Cup and you want to play rugby. I remember on Monday, the team was like, "So what's the video? We're doing for the video session." I'm like, "Well, like, it was like, we're so shit. Like, let's just scrap it and go into the next game. Like, there's no point in us like diving deep into this. Like what you want me to break down what happened? Like, you just didn't play rugby this weekend. Like, you just came here like this, did 100 mistakes. So like, let's just all we can do is like forget that happened, and then we just. I remember we just never watched the video of that game. We sort of moved into the next week. I think Jake will do the same.
It's like, yeah, everyone needs one mulligan a season, and you know, I'm sure the coaches have it too. It's just one of those things. You're like, can you explain it? No. How are we going to fix it? There's no way of fixing it because I can't explain it, so don't even bother. Like, we'll just forget it ever happened. We'll just treat it like it never happened, and we'll move on, and that'll be that. There'll be one oak in that team, though, like one super analytical guy or something, and for the rest of the season, that shit's going to be sitting in the back of his head going, can someone talk to me about how we messed that up? Like, I really need to know how to fix that. Maybe the analytics guy is like, just having an aneurysm because he's like, shit, man, I really need to get this off my chest.
I need us to actually put our rugby brains together. We need to work out what the best backline is for the Bulls. I mean, Zach Berg and Chris Smith, they had their chance this weekend and didn't probably do themselves any favors. Now, and there seems to be players that are maybe not in their best positions, a little bit out of position. It just didn't seem like, I mean, it's not the only thing that was wrong on Saturday, but it doesn't seem like we're getting the best out of the Bulls backline players at the moment. Sean Kooks, do we have some form of consensus on the Bulls backline? Do we have Zach Berg and Jan Goosen as 9 and 10? And then what do we do in the midfield? Let's start with Sean.
Sorry, go Sean.
So, yeah, that's interesting, eh? I'm just having a quick look through this the squad over here. So I'll probably still keep Lionel Mapu at 13. I quite like him there. I won't lie. The other option is have Hendricks in at 13, and then I don't know what you do, but I think maybe is you just settle things down a little bit, have a bit of experience. Maybe you move Mapu. The question was, what is the best backline? I would go with Hendricks at 12 and Mapu at 13. I would probably still go Chris Smith at 10. Ambrose Papier at 9. I think Ambrose is having a really, really good season. I think he made one mistake on Friday, on the weekend. But I think Ambrose Papier is having a pretty decent game. So I think maybe he edges Zach Berger for me. Saboon Corsi on the one wing. I'd have Moody if he's fit. Playing definitely. I'm still not sold on Creel at 12, to be honest. But I think maybe that's a horses for courses thing, you know? Yeah. And Stedman Gans, I think he's better than what he did on Saturday. I think, well, like we just said, I think that game is probably something that we just erase from our memory and move forward. But yeah, I'll go Papier, Smith, and then between Smith and Goosen, Hendricks, Mapu, And Corsi left, Moody right, Kirkley Aronsa 15.
Yeah, I think I agree with Shaun. It's kind of, that's sort of mine as well. I think Hans is a big one for me. I mean, it's either him or Ma, who I like the option of Hendricks back at 12, but I know when is Forster back? Is he injured?
I think so. I haven't heard much about him.
It doesn't
he had
sound
a
like it's a
flipping good
long
season last season, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I think for him not to have been back is quite interesting. I think Forster, for me, if he's fit and available, he's going to be at 12, either Mapu or Henry's at 13. But I do love the option of Henry's at 12, especially if Forster's out, and then obviously Zach Berger 9 for me, of course, and 10. But the Bulls backline, like I said, I think Jack White it looks like it's been built for horses for courses, where guys come in and out, and especially with so many games coming up now, they can do that. But I mean, I think I do like this move, Kanan Moody and Kirtley Aronson back three. I think that is dangerous. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's the centers are interchangeable. I think it just depends on who and what sort of style they play. But I would just love to see Juan Huijsen just get to April before we talk about him in box circles. And I think that's the most important thing. I thought Jake was kind of a little bit smart in not playing him in an artificial pitch. I think that's sort of management he needs. But yeah, I think with the Bulls, like that backline, you can try on a Bulls backline, but this weekend you might find out that Eric Lowe is playing 13.
Don't you bloody do that to me. That's like a 7 a.m. kickoff in Australia. I'll shit the bed.
No, Jake White does like a few little experiments. So we'll see, and maybe those things could pay off at the end of the season. Let's move on to or just a quick overview of the other results in the URC. Gents, you're welcome to stop me if there's a game you want to go onto in more detail. So we had Connacht beating Munster 20 points to 11. Munster's season from hell just continuing, and Connacht getting their first win. They had a really tough start in the competition, and now at least can get a win on the board. You have Scarlets that lost to Cardiff 16 points to 10 in the Welsh derby. Ulster, my picks for the URC, beating Ospreys 47 points to 17. Welcome back to Dwayne Famulum at Ulster. They've signed Rory Sutherland from Worcester Warriors, and they have Stephen Kitsoff's signature for next season after the World Cup. And then Benetton beating the Dragons 34 points to 14. Shaun, any games you want to talk about for a few seconds?
Yeah, quick one. Munster are in trouble. They need to fix something. Scarlets are comfortably next to Munster. They're also in trouble. There's problems there. Super happy with Ulster. They're actually mounting a nice little charge. They're officially the second team in Ireland now, because Munster have fallen away. It was always Leinster, Munster, and then Munster, Ulster fighting out for second. And then, not surprising, but surprising, Benetton beating Dragons. Dragons obviously very powerful at home, as we saw against the Sharks. I think they're mounting, making home a bit of a fortress, but away from home they're looking vulnerable.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Nick Timoney, who's just playing some great rugby for Ulster at the moment. Let's move on to the Premiership, where, as Shaun mentioned to us before we started recording, all 5 away teams won their matches this weekend. So that's Exeter beating Bristol Bears away, 50 points to 14. That's Gloucester beating Bath away, 21 points to 17. That's Sale beating Leicester away in the South African derby, 26 points to 16. Saracens winning 34 points to 14 against Newcastle, and Northampton winning their match against Wasps 40 points to 36. And that Northampton game is that was a very dramatic game, because Cordno Skorsan getting the last minute try in order to get that win over Wasps. Shaun?
What? I just want a massive shout out to all the South Africans and the Saffers abroad. But Northampton needed to score a try from a kickoff, and Jono Augustus fielded the ball, took it up. They ran a phase. Then the second or third phase, Dave Ribbons just absolutely steamrolled Nizam Kar, who had a pretty decent game, I must say, but steamrolled him. great front football, and then they spread it right, and Kortnaskosan scores the winner. So South Africans really cooking in the Premiership this weekend. But that Wasp Saints game was flipping incredible, man. What a game. It was just some brilliant tries, and sheesh, amazing.
And not a bad game for Burger Ordendal as well. He had 3 defenders beaten at 61 meters that he made. So a big advert for the game there for South Africans.
He's gone like what we expected him to be doing for Wasps. He's gone in and probably lifted up 20 or 30%. He's really taken that. He made an incredible line break. He's a great player for them at the moment. He's really been performing for them. I reckon that they all secretly high-fiving each other for signing him, because he's been great for them. He's been an absolutely great signing for them, and they're he's putting some great performances together this season.
Let's move to the Sale Leicester game, and Sale winning that 26 points to 16. Kooks, you weren't at last week's podcast, but we had a bit of a discussion about a certain tweet from the Rugby Bits account about one Rob Dupree Jr. and his performances. And this Saturday, he made the account and Shaun look really good with a really good performance against the Leicester Tigers. And he, in terms of his stats, he had 4 defenders beaten. He made 7 tackles. He was just instrumental in their win against Leicester. Kooks, where do you fall in this Rob Dupree debate?
This Rob Dupree debate is causing tensions that Ben Smith couldn't even think of causing on Twitter. I think
you were the last man that could have supported me on this, eh? You were the last one.
No, sure.
There was no one else.
I'm a firm believer in like players move on, right? There's different circumstances. Obviously, the Sharks and under Rob Dupree, where probably wasn't his best, but like now you sort of see if a guy's playing well, you've got to give him his due. I mean, this reminds you a lot of when Damon Delindi was public enemy number 1 pre-2019 World Cup, and also just like this. And then sometimes you need a change of environment. New coach comes in, and then Damon would fight anyone who was against Damon Delindi. I think Robert Dupree is playing very good rugby. You can fight him, you can have agenda against him, but you can't say he's not cooking at the moment, and Sale are cooking in. And it's great to see him, because I know that Sale is spending a lot of time at 13 and all of that. So seeing it and seeing him playing well, and the confidence he has, that's the glimpses of what you thought we'd see at the Sharks. But yeah, Shaun, I think I'm probably more on Team Rob as well, because listen, the guy is putting up performances. He's knocking on the door. You've got to open it. This is 2022 is a big year for guys for renaissance. I mean, Double could be the coach mix. You talk about him. Robert Dupree is back. This is the year of changing your whole career. This is the makeover year.
Yeah, I think this is becoming the year where you just restore your reputation there. If you're a rugby player that's a bit down and out. A bit of Premiership news is that Dan Biggar has announced that he will leave Saints at the end of the season, and Saints have also announced that they've signed Finn Smith, the flyer for Worcester Warriors. I think they were probably in to sign him even before the administration happened to Worcester. But yeah, he's obviously a great young talent, and he'll be the flower for Saints hopefully for years to come. So that's a great talent to sign. Shaun, do you have any quick thoughts about the Dan Biggar Dan Biggar leaving Saints?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you read his announcement, but he basically said that he's gutted, and it was by no means a decision made by him or the club. It was a decision that had to be made because of the salary cap. So he's done bloody well since being there. He did limp off this weekend, which is something that the Saints and the Wales faithful are all going to be a little bit stressed about. But to be fair, we've seen him limp off before and then get up in the field of play to make a try-saving tackle. So, that man loves a little comeback. He's like the Terminator. But yeah, they're going to struggle to fill that that role. He's their fly half and he's their captain, and he's a bloody good fly half. And he's a kind of fly half, if you don't rate him, that you will only see how good he really is on the global platform, because he's probably up there in one of the top 5 fly halves in the world, or maybe even top 3. He's incredible. And you'll only see that when he retires and leaves the game. But yeah, it's going to be a massive, massive loss for Saints. There's no two ways about it.
Guys, quickly, I was talking about Dan Bigger, and I was thinking about how it's weird. I remember Dan Bigger when he first came through, like late 2000s, and sort of not rating him. Always like, oh, this guy was obviously under Stephen Jones, and sort of. I remember the 2011 World Cup, leaving there. I thought Reece Prieston would be the guy that sort of gets the 100 caps, and Dan Bigger sort of has gotten better each year. And like it's almost like once he hit 30, he's gotten better and better each year. And I was thinking, I was looking at someone like Quade Cooper as well. Like almost the older he got, and when he hit his 30s, he was like he also hit this sort of fame where we're like, oh guys, Quade Cooper, you can't. He has to go to the World Cup. I was thinking, as fly halves become like Test cricket batsmen, like in cricket, where they actually their peak years are in that 31 to 36 range. Because Sexton seems to be playing, he's 36 and 37, he's still cooking. So it could be seeing a situation where sort of Test rugby is like Test 10s are actually, when you get to 32, that's actually when their peak is.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, Kooks. I think just I think it's kind of like what's happening with quarterbacks in the NFL, where now that maybe in some ways you know there's advancements in like your like conditioning and all that sort of stuff, you can go for longer as a fly half, and you're obviously not getting the physical battering that like the flanks and the locks are taking up front. So you can go for longer, and as you get older, obviously you're more aware of the game and like where spaces and everything. And now, like in your early 30s and maybe mid 30s, it's a meeting of you still have that ability physically, but your ability to think the game is a lot higher than it was when you're in your 20s. So now you can see gaps. You can play 2-3 phases ahead of the opposition. You can see where the space is kicking and everything that's happening there. So I think it does make some sense. And I think with Bigger, he's certainly improved now that he's gone to his 30s. You've talked about Sexton. I think Owen Farrell's also another example that he's letting his game do the talking, and he's letting his game do the work for him instead of almost trying to do and be everything and try to be a bit more of a game manager. Like I think he's really just he's really been able to see the opportunities of when to put the foot on the gas and put pressure on the team, and versus when to relax and step back as well. So I think there is some validity to that, Kooks. Which is good news for the Springboks, because Handré Pollard's only 28 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So that means he will, if he's still entering his peak, that'll be good news for them.
I do feel like, especially someone like Handré Pollard going to Leicester now at his age, I think there's still a lot more rugby in him, and a lot more, obviously, where I think it's going to be a great move for him, and it's going to be interesting to see his development. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of the 10th performances, guys. I mean, Dan Carter, we probably arguably put 3 of his best performances in his career at the end. And it's going to be interesting. I think I'll definitely dive deeper into this, because it's a thought that popped in my head now, where it just seems to be like, as of late, like if you talk, I would have thought Johnny Sexton would probably been done playing for Ireland after 2019 World Cup, possibly 2015, and now we're looking at a situation where he's going into the next World Cup as the best 10. I wouldn't be surprised maybe he pushed himself just for Leinster and carries on playing a little bit, because we all know he does skip about 6 games because he doesn't go to Italy, so that it does extend your career. It's an interesting concept, and I really hope to see what happens like with our 10s. I mean, like, look at Elton Young, he's 31 now, going to France, so maybe that's also that time where sort of another peak. I think it's almost like a second peak. You got your 20s, and then the second peak in your 30s when you start a little bit mature. And I'm keen to see where, especially with someone like Handré Pollard.
I mean you've just talked about the news that we have now that Elton Jantjies seems like he signed for Toulon and that he's moving to Toulon, I think, with immediate effect, and that'll be great news for Toulon themselves. I think um, they're getting obviously a very experienced international to their team, and that someone that can play all for backup Mihai West as well. Instead of, I think the arrangement now was probably someone like Baptiste Serin playing 10, and you ideally don't want to do that. And Elton, you will be able to combine with Cheslin Kolbe as well, so that's a really good contract situation for him. Um, so we'll have to see. Maybe there is a bit of a comeback for Elton Jantjies, and I think it will definitely fit into the narrative for chasing the croissant or whatever we're going to call the documentary next. I'm not sure, Kooks, if you know how these names happen for these documentaries. Just quick notes on the top 14. Toulouse is just looking absolutely unbeatable right now, and that guy again, Antoine Dupont, is just playing his socks off every week, and they are very much established at the top of the log of the top 14. Toulon, they saw the comeback of Cheslin Kolbe. Kooks, do you like the lack of scrum cap for Cheslin Kolbe? Do you think that's a better look for him?
I'm all for that. That's like, like as close the guys come back when the guy gets picked for team, he comes back with the bald head, and you're like, okay, yeah, this guy is business now. Like when you have you seen that Netflix Redeem Team documentary?
Yes, I was about to say
it comes out of nowhere with a bald head. That's
yes.
the equivalent of that when Kobe came out there, like, because we were like when he's like, okay, talking about Orange so moody, the guys are saying I've lost it now. Okay, watch this. And he came off those scrum. I was like, okay, this is different now. I'm all for guys doing things that makes them look like they've got extra focus. I'm all for it, Thala.
No, he definitely took it personally, and he was hearing some of the whispers that people are saying that maybe Moody would be a better 14, or Kirkley looks like the new Cheslin Kolbe, and he's definitely taken it personally. It's just weird not seeing him with the scrum cap. I don't know. I'm not sure if it makes him look more or less elusive yet. So I'm still a little bit on the fence for that. But like just the way that he took the try on Saturday, he definitely has not lost. He hasn't lost anything, and that'll be good news for Jacques Nienaber when he's picking his November tour squad. So he scored his try. Toulon beating Brief 47 points to 0. There was a video posted by Jared about with Danny Priso, who's also joined Toulon this season from La Rochelle, and the handshake that he has with Cheslin Kolbe. So I don't know if that'll make Raymond Rule jealous, because he used to have all the handshakes with Danny Priso last season. Then other results, you have Lyon beating Bordeaux. You have Stade France putting 50 on Perpignan. Racing 26 points to 13 against Pau. A big comeback for Gael Ficou, which is great news for rugby fans in general, but for Fabien Galtier especially for November. And then good old Finn Russell made his comeback or is playing, and he was actually, funnily enough, talking about managing of his minutes. So and that he has a better understanding with the coach for Racing, that he will not necessarily play every weekend. So that's actually good news, and probably further proves your point, Kooks. But another interesting debut was Christian Wade coming on starting for Racing on Saturday. So there's a lot to be excited about in the Racing team this year, Kooks. As their number one fan, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, Racing. I feel like I know that I've seen this movie before, Tyler. I've seen this movie. You're going to be excited for the changes. It's going to be exciting. Christian Wade's going to do some amazing plays. Finn's going to cook, and then we're going to lose a semi-final. We shouldn't lose in the European Cup, and then we're going to lose a semi-final or final in the top 14 that we shouldn't lose, and then we start this process again. That's how it feels being a Racing fan. It's just, and like, but I'm excited. I'm happy to see Christian Wade back. And Khalad just saying he wasn't his best, but I really hope it's a dangerous backline. And I think, man, if you thought Khalante and Lebokken was a special combination, I think Finn and Khalan might do some wild things.
I mean, I missed this, but when did they sign Francis Saili? Because that's a great replacement, effectively, for Veremi Vakatawa in the midfield.
Yeah, 100%. Also, and I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, where did he pop up from? And yeah, that was, yeah, I also agree with you. Very astute signing. Thala, again, we're doing all the right things, right? Until May. So I'll come to terms that we are the streets team. We shouldn't provide great highlights, but hopefully we can just win just a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't really fight with their recruitment. You know, they got Trevor Nyakane last season as well. They've got everything you need to be a great team. But yeah, it'll be just a matter of what they do. Yeah, what they do when they're one of those teams like you have like in the NBA where we don't really care about what they do in the regular season. It's all about what they do in the playoffs and when things get serious. And then Cooks, just a quick one about we have Warwick Halant. He's playing well. He's posting photos every weekend from his games. He's loving the Parisian lifestyle, and he's getting his tweets on his haters, and he's taking note for his haters that he's going to be playing well as well. So I think we're going to have a motivated Warwick Halant playing here because we know when he's making those tweets about whichever haters he has, that he plays his best rugby then.
You know when Boogie starts talking about his haters, someone's in big trouble. Someone's in big trouble. If I'm in the French top 14, make sure your ankle straps are tight because something bad is gonna happen. Because the last time Boogie went on that, the run he went on the Storm was after that. It's almost like the opposition was like the Sharks. And like, we don't hate you, Boogie. Like, why are you taking this out on us? Like on your side. But I'm keen to see. I'm keen to see what Boogie does up there. I mean, I think it's a great move for him. I think it's in that backline, I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Other news is for Montpellier, they lost 26 points to 13 to Castres, and Cobus Reinach making his comeback to Montpellier, so that's good news for them. Bayonne beating La Rochelle, bit of a surprise, and I think the top 14 is quite clear that there's a leading team in there with Toulouse, and they still don't. I mean, Ruan Venter is injured, so he hasn't played for the last few weeks, but they're still leading. They're still leading that pack quite easily. And then just finally, Kooks, we get to the end of the podcast, and we usually do our weekend shoutouts. Do you have any weekend shoutouts, or do you want to use the opportunity to rant about your Packers losing in London this weekend?
Oh, jeez. Oh, I was having a good day, then you remind me of that. Oh man, that was frustrating. But no, I think my weekend shout out, I think for me has to go to the Lions. I think great tour, great story. And yeah, we got to shout out Cash Van Rooyen. I mean, Cash Van Rooyen has caught many strays on the Twitter streets. Yeah, it also took my ranting. I want to rant something like any followers of Rugby Bits. Guys, let's do better at this Ben Smith thing. Like the thing that triggered us about the whole thing about the New Zealand under 19 be like, guys, that's the easiest bait that's been thrown out there, and somehow people still were hooked on, got so upset. I'm like, guys, we can't let it be this easy for him to get us so triggered. I'm like, guys, let's at least make it tough for him. Like, we know he's a troll. We know when we know that he loves trolling us. But listen, if the balls get cooked, the guys that's what happens. It's almost like Thala, you understand, like footy Twitter. If Arsenal loses, you're gonna catch the smoke 100%. In a way where you may be slightly better or Arsenal's ahead of Chelsea, I'm still gonna give you that smoke for that week. You know what I mean? Like, who cares about facts? It's about giving you that smoke. And I think as Twitter is, I think that's the next evolution we have, because I do think that there's a lot of good that comes. There's a lot of bad, dark place history can be. There's a lot of good accounts as well. Find like things like Hooper's Hoop, and there's a lot of great things. But like someone like Ben Smith, you gotta know a troll where it comes from, so you know where it come. But also we're gonna be better. And when the All Blacks lose on the cues, we got to dish it out as well in a respectful way as well. That's my rant for the day. And stop. When the Wallabies play again on Thursday next year, I'm on your ass.
No, I'm actually literally on Ben Smith's account now, and you just see the interactions he gets when he tweets something related to criticizing South Africa versus anything else. And yeah, it's night and day. And of course, it just, I think, is more of an indictment on our fans, that we always like just fall for the bait every time. Because I mean, yeah, like like I said on Twitter, he's not even trying now to, like, his trolley's not even like clever at this stage, talking about the New Zealand under 19 team beating like a few invitational sides that we had tour, that they played on this tour that they did a few weeks ago. So, like, what is even the point of responding to this? There's literally no reason for this. But yeah, I mean, Kooks, I think we still remember the days when Ben Smith was probably one of the best analysts on rugby Twitter, and yeah, it's unfortunate that he's fallen into the troll games now.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, he still writes some fantastic columns, fantastic articles, especially you talk about attack and things like that, and where the All Blacks go to next. So yeah, but now it's sort of falling into Trollsville. But I mean, like, I still believe that two things can be true. I still believe you can be a troll and still be able to deliver a good article, and because facts are facts. But now I think it's gonna be remembered more as a troll. I think he's also embraced this fact as a troll because he knows how easy it is to trigger South Africans.
Yeah. I think my quick rant, or not really rant, but I think you mentioned it earlier. I tweeted something about, that South Africans winning, at the time it was 10 out of 10 of their games against opposition teams. It's now 10 out of 12. And just talking about maybe the stand of the URC compared to Super Rugby, that there's absolutely no chance that South African teams would be able to do that, win 10 games out of anything against their overseas opponents in Super Rugby. And I think my rant is more along the lines of South African fans that want it both ways, that want to be able to criticize New Zealand, Australian rugby, that they're weaker without us, that their standards are falling and all that sort of stuff. But also with the South African teams doing well in the URC, not maybe admitting that, maybe this is not the as tough a competition as Super Rugby was. And I mean, yeah, you can talk about travel being a factor in that, but still, like, I think that the point stands that there's probably less quality teams in the URC at the moment than there are in Super Rugby. And up until, to an extent, the Scottish sides, but mostly the Welsh and the Italian sides, and, stand up and at least are able to defend their home grounds, then we're going to have a situation where the South African teams, Leinster and Ulster, can win pretty much all their other games, and then they're going to be the top six and they can sort out amongst themselves who wins the URC this year. So yeah, we can't really say and have it both ways. Like, we can't be laughing or like treating New Zealand and Australia for their Super Rugby product, and that the Crusaders are just walking over and Australian teams aren't bringing much opposition. Where if the form book continues the way it is, we might have 4 South African teams in the quarterfinals, which is also a little bit of a joke. So yeah, I don't know where you fall in this debate, but I think the form in the last, and it's not just been this season, but even the second half of last season, it's the South African teams have just, once they got used to things, they've been winning most of the games in the URC, and it just seems like the overseas opponents are intimidated in some respects about like the size of South African teams, because a lot of their interviews will just talk about the size and the physicality of the South African teams, and I'm like, look, you have Lions or British and Irish Lions in your teams, or internationals. I mean, if you're talking about Evan Etzebeth and his physicality, fine, fair enough, but Albert North Nagel for the Lions, I mean, sure, he's physical as well, but like Edinburgh or whoever, you should be able to stand up to that.
Yeah, I think I mean your side slightly on the argument. You said like you said your tweet said for us to win 10 out of 12 games against overseas opposition and a bulk of them have been away, that would be unheard of when you go to Super Rugby. Yes, maybe travel has been a big factor. Like, but also you look at over the years, even like I was thinking Super Rugby, like you look at the New Zealand teams and Australian teams. New Zealand, we struggle against them here in South Africa as well. We just tend to always struggle against those sides, and it's maybe it's quite a position where I do think now for us to come to a competition brand new and sort of dominated as we had 2 finalists last year. We had the Bulls going to RDS and winning. We had the Stormers turning around mid-season and we sort of won 14 games straight now in the URC, which is fantastic. And also, and like, yeah, you can have that. And I think obviously winning is a great thing. I think our sides are improving, but I just don't like it's tough. You make the comparison, and my wonder. I do think though quality of position. I think we will sort of improve with the more times of those sides sort of play against the South African teams. I think they'll get better. But yeah, I just didn't think we'd see a situation, our second season in URC, where we could have probably you could have three sides in the playoffs next year, and the four of the Lions could with that momentum, and where it sort of feels it's almost like us versus Ireland with the Edinburghs and then them chipping in. You know what I mean? So, and that's something I didn't foresee. I do think like Irish rugby is going to get better. They're going to strengthen because they seem the ones that are matching us. And I just think Super Rugby, like the 20 or something years that happened, was rare for us to get. We get maybe two sides in the playoffs. We have a good year. We've only had two SSIs in the final. That was 2007 and 2010. Otherwise, we've never had it. So, yeah, I think if you look in that way, I know a lot of people like obviously happy. I mean, I'm happy to see ourselves dominating. That's what I want to see. And I think the quality of rugby has definitely improved this season. A lot more eyes on it. A lot of teams are getting better. And it is not just dominating, but like I said, I just don't think you'll have seen a Lions side go win 3 games on tour. When it's against the Tars or the Highlanders or something like that. And like, back in those days, if you came back with 2 wins on tour, it was a fantastic tour out of 4. So I'm interested to see how the rest of the season goes. I see that most of the sides now getting the internationals back, but they leave soon. So like we must be a situation where 2 semi-finals could be in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not the best. I mean, it's good for South Africa, but it's not necessarily good for the competition. Like same as what it would be in the in Super Rugby if like the New Zealand teams were constantly in the finals. Like I think for everything that we say about like Super Rugby, there was a bit of variety. I mean, yes, Crusaders were usually one of the teams that would win every year or so, but we had you had the Bulls dynasty, you had the Brumbies dynasty, you had the Blues dynasty, you had the Australian teams, the rest of the Waratahs getting wins as well. So there was a bit more variety in that. So it hopefully mustn't fall into the trap that it's just either the South African teams or maybe a bit of Leinster as well. I mean, you look at the log now; it's you have all 4 South African teams in the top 8, which is a bit insane and like crazy like from that standpoint. But at least Benetton is there in the top 4. You have Glasgow that is there at 7th at the moment, but it's the bottom of the log that'll be a concern, and it'll be about, okay, how can we get Zebre to be able to get some wins, and they're improving at least this season, and that points difference isn't too bad, so they hopefully are a few, they're a game or so away from that win. But I think the worrying thing is the 4 Welsh teams at the bottom half of the table. Ospreys at 9th and Scarlets at 15th. So I think that's probably the key to raising the standard of the URC, because there will be at least 2, probably 3 good Irish teams, I think, in future, once Munster either sorts themselves out or Connacht will just continue improving. Um, Scottish sides will be decent because they only have 2 professional sides, so they are concentrating all their talent there. So if they're able to get like some of the Scottish players that are coming out of England because of the salary caps, that's all better for them as well. It's now just the Welsh sides. They need to find a way to compete, because Benetton is doing their job and they're becoming competitive, and they're beating the bad teams and playing well against the good teams. So now the question is, how do the Welsh sides improve? So yeah, hopefully, the likes of Wayne Pivac, Robbie and Will Owen at Squid Rugby Channel, and whoever else is Welsh can get that sorted. Because as good as it is having maybe 4 South African teams in the knockouts, and that being a real prospect now at this stage, obviously still early in the competition, it it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be 4 Irish teams. Shouldn't be any, like, no one country should have all of that power. to paraphrase, like, we need to have a fair share of like teams winning and stuff, because that's how you grow interest in the competition, where every weekend you turn it on and you're like, oh, who's going to win this weekend? And that's maybe not been the case in the last few weeks with the South African teams running away with it. So it's good in that sense that Glasgow and Leinster were able to get some wins. And yeah, I think the Kooks, I think a tour now for Ulster and Glasgow, 2 really good teams, to the Sharks and the Lions. Yeah, we might be able to expect maybe a win or 2 for those sides.
Yeah, 100%. I think I really the Ulster side is slowly and surely becoming my favorite Irish side. I mean, like, you know how you feel about like McCloskey and Mike Lowry, and like, like it's just it's just a really good side. I mean, it's a great pickup for them to get Steven Kitsoff as well. I think it's a really good side of watching Glasgow. It's also a tidy side in Edinburgh, I think. So I'm really excited when they come here. I think for them, for those sides, it's crucial they come and win games here. Because now we've shown that we can win games overseas, especially on our box. It's crucial for them to come and win games. And I think that's going to be exciting. And I can't wait to see how Ulster goes. I mean, like I said, I just really, really like that side. It's just a great side to be a neutral and just watch.
Yeah, that's good. And then, Kooks, I think let's wrap it up here. I think I have now discussed most rugby over the weekend. I think just a quick mention to the NPC going to its semi-finals, Auckland, Wellington, Bay of Plenty, and of course Canterbury making it to the semi-finals. I think Wellington will probably be the favourites with all the former All Blacks that they have in their team. And yeah, I think that's probably all the rugby around the world. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to the Rugby Bits podcast, brought to you by bet.co.za. Please go onto their site for all of the like the markets and the deals and the bets that you can make for the week's rugby as well. And we will see you next time on the Rugby Bits podcast.